Good, whatever part of the day it is for you. Welcome to the Working Tools podcast, where tonight we're discussing Ritual in Freemasonry by Most Worshipful Brother Kenneth Aldridge, past Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Quebec, published August 1990 in the Short Talk Bulletin, Volume 68, Number 8.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Good, whatever part of the day it is that you're listening to us. I am Worshipful Brother Jarrod Dunham from Benedictine Lodge number 147, and we have 3/4 of our normal rogues gallery tonight discussing the paper. From south of the border, we have Very Worshipful Brother David Colbeth from King Solomon number 60. And to the north of me, we have Worshipful Brother Stephen Chung from Prince George Lodge number 153 in Kelowna, British Columbia. Hey, guys.
Hello, hello.
How are we doing?
In Prince Charles, right?
Did I say
Prince George?
I know. I always get, because it's Prince George and St. Charles. I don't know why I say that. Sorry, Prince Charles Lodge, number 153. It does that weird ancient stuff. But that's enough. So tonight we're discussing Ritual in Freemasonry by a past Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Quebec. Anyone's initial response to this paper other than wanting to burn it, maybe?
This could be a long show or a really short show.
Yes, I agree. It's good.
I mean, when we were talking about building the algorithm, we didn't even get off the title for like 20 minutes. So Ritual. I do appreciate his comments about how it's a unifying experience of what ritual is and what it is to him. At least I did appreciate those things. At first, I didn't have any comments, and I went back again. I read it again, and I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I do kind of agree with that stuff. It's hard to disagree with somebody when you agree with when it's what we do.
Well, I mean, there are things you could disagree with it. I mean, I like the unifying experience really got me because I've always viewed. Like I view our ritual, like right from the moment that we close the door and start, as being that signal to all of us that this is no longer just a room with a bunch of guys in it chit-chatting. We're going to be doing something important. And that the ritual always is that it's the starting gun for my evening. For knowing that things are about to get serious.
Was it? Now I'm having a deja vu moment. Either we were talking about it or it was in the paper or somewhere else I read that there was, in some lodges, there is a more significant moment. I mean, in Prince Hall lodges in Washington anyway, in this jurisdiction, they don't apply their aprons until they're told to. In the ritual, the brethren will be clothed, officers report, and they do that. But there was some other jurisdiction or somewhere else that there was even something more. Now I'm drawing a blank.
I know that I have seen video of lodges under the Grand Lodge of England where the officers process into Lodge Hall. Like that is, and everyone stands. And so, I mean, there's that. I know that in at least the ritual book for up here for Stephen and my lodges, that there is in the front of it, it talks about that you come in and put on your apron in the lodge, and that's the signal that things are about to start. That you don't put your, as opposed to the standard where you go in, you get clothed, you sort of hang out in the lodge room, greet your brothers, sort of chit chat for a few minutes beforehand. So, and I have heard about the observant lodges where the lodge room isn't opened until the lodge is about to sit and start.
I think that would be a cool idea.
Yeah.
That would make a lot of sense to me.
You just have to have a much bigger reception area than we have in our lodge hall down here.
In Hawaii, I was fortunate back in April to visit a lodge, and they're clothed with their aprons, but they don't have their jewels are handed out individually, and they have a procession. I don't know if I should, sorry, Hawaii. They have a procession. They have a procession that goes around the altar. So the officers line up and they make a procession, and the master hands out the jewel to each of them as they go by. And then they go to their station, and then together they put their collars on, their jewels on. That was really cool.
Was that Kona Lodge?
No, it was the French Lodge, and you're gonna try to make me say it, and I can't. I'm not gonna pretend to say it. It's
That's
the French
okay.
Lodge.
I didn't know there was one there. That's an interesting ritual, though, to be handed your jewel as you go in.
Yeah. Well, it's not. They're in their stations, and the master says their brethren will be clothed, and they're already in there, and then they're, of course, the ritual changes. I don't know, remember exactly how it goes, but so they're already in the room, and then they step away from their stations and then go and pick up their jewels. I thought it was kind of weird that they weren't wearing them, but I was just.
But then, is that ritual or is that tradition?
It's a great question. I didn't ask that specifically. I would guess they say that they are the oldest lodge west of the Mississippi. They're French based. They were French chartered, so their third degree is a French third degree. And I didn't get it. I probably could have gone to see it, but it was going to be 2 days of masonry on a 10-day vacation that I didn't think my wife would want me to to do. And it was hot, and their air conditioning wasn't working, so that was another excuse for me. But I do regret not going, because that would have been an amazing experience to see a French degree.
Yeah, once in a lifetime opportunity.
Maybe.
Yep. But you only get married once too, right? Well, supposedly, anyways. I'm twice.
Yeah.
I didn't learn the first time, you see. So I made all those mistakes of thinking that because she was a Joby and I was a D. Malayan, we grew up through the organization, that she would understand these extra nights in Freemasonry.
Mm-hmm.
But I digress. Yeah.
So Jarrod, lead us down the path of temptation here.
The path of temptation. Well, I chose this one because it sort of covered the one topic that always I dislike going to a lodge and finding when people don't know their ritual, and then you'll always get the people afterwards going, oh, well, it's not that important.
Well, that's interesting, because I know that I've heard several members say, no, I'm not going down to visit that lodge. Their ritual is always ad hoc, and they don't seem to put any effort into it. And it's, the one thing that they can say that is consistent amongst every single one of them is that every time you go to that lodge, you see a different version of their ritual, right? And so they don't actually want to go. It can be hard to sit there and watch ad hoc ritual. So I get it, right?
Yeah, it's not hard. It's damn near impossible.
Well,
so would
some of us do it.
Would you rather have them reading it correctly than saying, well, if you had a choice, so you'd have them not do the ritual at all, possibly.
Yep.
If you're not going to do it, and this is what I liked about this paper was his he kept referring to it as that sort of disrespectful lack of preparedness, because you're disrespecting yourself, you're disrespecting the ritual, and you're disrespecting the people who have maybe sat in your office or that part of the degree and worked hard to get it, and you're not putting in the effort that you should be putting in. I would never. Well, up here we're not allowed to. You cannot read your ritual. So,
well, we're not supposed to either.
Yeah. So, because that's funny, because I have heard people say that too, is that they would rather go to a lodge where everyone, does good works in the community and gets along and have them read the ritual than, have these people who are all focused on ritual. And I'm like, no,
Well, I'm not talking about the whole lodge either, though. I'm just
Yeah.
saying like one person or a section or something. I guess I also refer back to, remember Steve's talking about in the past, there was a master that they've had or someone he knew that was a great leader, supposedly, when we were talking about leadership, but he wasn't a good ritualist. And
Right.
he put that out there to the membership to say, hey, I can't or won't or whatever have this ritual down, but he was a good leader, so they accepted him. So I know there's a give and take, maybe.
Yep. Well, that was in the Scottish Rite.
Okay.
And you know, it it did receive a lot of criticism, right? But when you're begging members to take chairs because you haven't got enough bodies to fill the chairs, and you accept the member who states that, you don't really have much of a choice. You accepted it, right?
Even was it even the opening closing of their various bodies that they, so in at least in our valley that I'm part of, a lot of the degree work is rid because, well, small excuse, they did change the degree work about maybe less than 10 years ago, 7 to 10 years ago, and so it's all new. They had memorized, some of the guys had memorized the previous stuff, but they had memorized the new stuff. So when I got my Scottish Rite degrees, most of them, maybe there was one or two guys that had it memorized, but the rest of them all read it.
Yeah, we don't we're not big on the reading part.
Yeah.
You know, it did cause some complications for years to follow, as some guy said, well, you know, it was okay for him, right? But they didn't, you know, the real difference is he stated it when they were begging him to take a position. He said, I do not know, or I do not do well with memory work, right? But I'll have everything organized. I will do my best to not make it as, you know, I'm reading everything. I will try to, you know, be fluent, right? But I'm going to come there with a binder, and so he told them straight up. Other guys are trying to slough it off as using it as an excuse. Well, he got to do it, and so why do I have to do this? Right? Well, that's because we know you're capable, and you didn't have a disclaimer when you came into the line, right? So it did cause some contentious conversations for a few people over the years, right? But you know, again, when you accept somebody and they're being straight up, you accept it, right?
There's an interesting vein in there, though, that should we as Masons have accepted that? Should we have allowed that to happen? Because just as you point out, now it set this precedent for the guys following on. And I have a spark of interest for Jarrod.
Well, I was going to say, that's not the vein that I got. The one I got on is, should there actually be a valley if you can't get enough bodies to do anything?
Well, that's another discussion.
But that's another. I'm not going to open up that. I'm not going to open up that vein tonight. So,
right. Well,
we could.
You know, but
but sorry, that, I've written a resolution to do what you guys do, your inspection process.
Right.
I've written a resolution to put that in. So hopefully it'll get some consideration next year.
I have, because this is the thing that always gets me with Rick. It's like, okay, so the prove up for ancient work up here in Canada, up here in BC, is significantly more than that for the Canadian lodges. And I know of at least one individual whose son is joining a Canadian lodge, even though his father belongs to an ancient lodge, simply because it's easier to do the memory work. And I'm like, part of me is upset, but the other part of me is like, well, if he does the memory work well, I don't care. Like if it's easier for him to learn less, but learn it well. Like we had a prove up just before we went dark over this summer that was amazing. Like, I mean, the gentleman that did it was like, he was prompting the prompter. Like he knew it 100%. And there was such a sense of pride and accomplishment in the rest of the lodge, not just in this one brother, but the rest of the lodge, knowing that someone did that well. That's why it always bothers me so much when ritual work is sloughed off.
Yeah, I had a big debate whether or not I was going to go down for that meeting. And
Right.
I was so glad that I did. Watching this prove up, it gave me hope that this lodge will have memory work done properly eventually, right? And it was simply uplifting. And I said to him, I said, you know what? I want to be at every prove up of yours and let me know when.
Right.
And even though I made the time, and I will make the time to be at his next one, right?
That sort of shows the unifying, how ritual is unifying. Because I mean, even
Right.
a prove up is ritual.
Yep.
You know,
and this paper that you had, I mean, it does explain the difference. Errors by a well-prepared ritualist still, it says here, it awakens feelings of understanding and compassion when an honest error occurs by, stress or distraction or throughout the process, right? Like it does address it, right?
Yeah.
And it's very true. Like, I mean, when we see a very proficient ritualist stumble, it does. That's exactly how I feel when I see that happen. But I gotta say, I am guilty of being one of those guys sitting on the side going, oh man, and being so critical of the constant lack of effort put out by some people, right? It is very challenging to continue to go to a lodge and watch that, right? Very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So,
because I mean, we've all been there where we know the memory work. We've been asked to do a part in one of the degrees or an installation, and we've run it through our heads, and you stand up there and you start, and all of a sudden you have a brain fart, and it's a total blank.
Yep.
And that's the honest error that they talk about in this paper, is that that's not you not knowing your ritual. That's you standing up there and all of a sudden, your brain skips.
Right.
And you need that. But as soon as the prompter gives you that one word, you're off and running again.
Right. And that guy puts the effort out,
Yeah.
and so you're kind of okay with it. But it leads me to another pet peeve. They're asked to do a piece of ritual work, let's say at an installation of an ancient lodge. Learn the part. Don't just come there and do the Canadian version. You are not doing it right in that sense. You are in an ancient lodge. You're asked to participate in an ancient installation. Learn the ancient work. I understand that they're very close, and sometimes you can carry over and cross over verbiage from one to another. Trust me, I know. I do both versions in several pieces, right? So it's very challenging to not do that, but a guy should put the effort towards learning that work that should do in their lodge, right? And it really bugs me when they blatantly don't, and they say, we're gonna, I'm just gonna do the Canadian work because that's what I know. Well, then don't say yes to doing the job, because I think it's a total letdown for the guy who's coming to receive that work, right?
Well, it's disrespectful to the lodge that you're helping out.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically saying that you're doing them a favor, and it's not important enough to you to learn their ritual.
Right. I mean, I guess, in the States where it's all one, or, where in parts of Canada where it's all one ritual, it's, they don't have that problem, right?
No.
But,
well, if you get somebody that's moved into town, we still get Canadian and Utah ritual all the time. Or California and Utah all the time. Somebody be going along and say, what is that? Oh, that's the what's the Catholic
catechism?
No, the Catholic Masonic organization. I call them Catholic Masonic organization.
Oh, the Knights of Columbus.
Knights of Columbus, yeah. Okay. We have a couple guys that be going along all of a sudden. What is that? Oh, it's Knights of Columbus work. I probably should edit this out, but we have a Mason that actually wrote a book about the schism. He said the schism between the Catholic Church and Freemasonry, and so he has a whole lecture he does on it and a program. It's really interesting, and he has direct contacts with people in the Vatican, so he's got a lot of background on it. And my version, my short, tongue-in-cheek version, is that the Pope that didn't get elected to the degrees of Masonry then created his own.
Wasn't that how all the other bodies and stuff sort of happened? Is that,
yeah, basically,
you won't play with me, I'll go form my own team.
That's exactly right.
But it comes up, it's you in this paper. He says that, disrespectful lack of preparedness quite a few times. How do you guys feel about prompting from the sides?
Oh,
only when
requested. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the only one requested. There should only be one.
Yeah.
Right.
I have to admit that I have probably mumbled louder than I probably should have every once in a while, not necessarily prompting someone, but and it's hard.
Oh yeah.
Especially when 4 prompters have prompted already and he still ain't getting it.
Yeah.
Right. Then you really want to chime in and right. But
See, now I'm having one of those. There was,
and I've never prompted incorrectly.
Someone else.
I've never prompted incorrectly.
But it's like, I think there was where was it? Someone mentioned somewhere that the prompt in one of the jurisdictions or something, they went and saw a degree work where the prompter moved around the lodge hall and whispered into whoever was doing whatever part. He would actually be close enough that he could whisper in their ear. So you didn't get the word, thou, thanks.
Yeah. When we do our degrees and we have a guy that is when they're doing an obligation at the altar, our prompter goes behind the worshipful master and is standing close by so that it's focused in that little area, right? No, otherwise, he said,
yeah, this was apparently their prompter goes around with like the room and prompts, so they're moving the entire time.
Interesting.
Wow. I've seen some interesting prompting. Like, I mean, there's one lodge I've seen the director of ceremonies. His job was to be the prompter as well, and he corrected the worshipful master mid-sentence. Mid-sentence, he corrected him. Right?
What does it say what does it say that you have to have an official prompter position about the quality of the ritual?
I thought that was the master of ceremonies.
The director of ceremonies is in some lodges. In our lodge is the secretary. It only makes sense. The secretary has a light at his desk, right? So no matter how dim the lights are, the secretary's got the book, right? So he can read it with the light, So that's what we choose in our lodge, right? But yeah, I remember I was in total. My jaw, I could have swore my jaw hit the floor and it made a noise because I went, oh!
Right. And once again, the ritual has been disrupted. The candidate has now, like, his experience has been disrupted, and they're getting less than what they should be getting in a degree. Yeah. And that's lack of preparedness as well on the part of the prompter.
Well, you see, one of the reasons we got into using coaching and whatnot was because we had a guy come through, get his entered apprentice degree, and when he was receiving his degree and some of the lecture, part of the lecture, every other sentence was prompted, and so when he went to go do his prove up, he just figured, no problem. I go, word.
Yeah.
Word.
Yeah.
Word. He figured he was going to be all right. We ended up, telling him, no, buddy, you can't, because we do our a test prove up on the weekend before our meeting, just to know that, he's capable, he's done it right. a couple of past masters were sitting there, so they can vouch that if in case he gets all stressed out in lodge and he really blows it, that they can say, yeah, we watched him, he did it very well, right, and so on, right? But we've actually told the guy, no, man, no, you can't just ask for a word. That was a guy who was filling in last minute and didn't have it done well. But he was filling up, but the candidate, he didn't know. He just thought that was normal. You could ask for a prompt every other sentence or phrase. So, that's the bad image that portrays when those types of things are let slide, right? So,
well, maybe we should talk about the difference between degree ritual and like opening closing ritual or things like that. I mean, I think there's maybe a significant difference between could be a significant difference between like your regular business open and closing.
How should it be considered any different?
I think David might have a point, and that might be actually something that we can discuss when we return next, as we're running short of time. So on behalf of David, Stephen, and myself, and our absent member who shall not be named, thank you for listening to the Working Tools podcast. As always, hit like, hit subscribe, and if there's any comments, you can just leave them below in the doobly-doo, whatever they call that. And we'll see you next time.